So here in Minnesota, it's a gorgeous morning, huh? We finally have a little bit less humidity and it's cooler, so that's wonderful. Got up pretty early so I could sneak out and get a little walk in before we met. Do you guys have plans at all today to be outside? Yeah. Even in your yard if you can, that's great. Safely be out. Yeah. So, so today is a topic that is a big one. Yeah, Gary, when he shares topics with me, I always try to reflect for a while and see what comes to me. And today's topic is like last week's, because it's a topic for the month. It was on what would peace look like? So that's just such a huge topic. So first of all, maybe if we could just spend just a minute, if you could close your eyes and kind of drop into your heart space and just to kind of clear whatever's been in your morning, any concerns you have for the day or for yourself right now. Just allow yourself to focus on your breath for just a minute. And in that breath, breathe deep into your abdomen, your diaphragmatic breathing. And then we're going to just ask that we're supported by your guides and the unseens, and that what needs to come through comes through. And just allowing yourself to relax a little bit and just giving yourself this time just to come together in the energies of like-minded people and getting a rest from some of what's going on in the world as a way to restore your system. And then slowly come back. Now, some of you know me and some of you may not know me. I don't even know how long I've been connected with Lake Harriet. It seems like a long time now. I first knew about Lake Harriet when I went to a expo one time, and Gary was at a table sitting with his ponytail, and he was signing people up to speak at Lake Harriet. And so I don't even know, it was probably 15 years or more. And I remember making a note of that. And then not too long after that, Nancy, who used to work at Lake Harriet, and Gary and a few others came to a training that I did in the 3 Principles Health Realization. And so then we got to know each other a little bit more. And I was invited to speak at Lake Harriet. And since that time, I've been speaking, I don't know, at least 2 or 3 times a year, doing the meditations on Tuesday nights. Mine is typically the third week of the month. And then I also sit on the vision committee and try to help with bringing quality programs and speakers to Lake Harriet. And so just a little bit about me, if you don't know me, is I grew up here in Minnesota, youngest of 5 kids. And just through my life kind of always had a yearning and a curiosity about spirituality. Went to a Catholic school growing up. I thought I was going to be a nun. And then at one point I had the realization that that might be limited. And be real kind of single focused in an area of spirit. I think one of the first times I remember its limitation was when we were studying geography and somebody was, we had these pictures, and one of the pictures had to do with India and other cultures, and there was a cow that they called sacred. And people in the room were just so upset that a cow could be sacred. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, like I had this somehow knowing that everything was sacred, that every being was sacred. So from then on, I just kind of decided that spirituality or consciousness would have to be studied in a different way. And I had many things happen in my life that brought me to different things. I ended up working in chemical dependency, chemical health. Then I worked bringing mental health and chemical health together. And then I began to see that it had more to do with understanding and finding ways that we could understand how we created reality rather than always trying to fix the after the fact part. So I started to look at how our internal mechanisms work and how our divine engineering allows us to experience life and create life. And as I was going down that road, I continued always working with people, counseling and running groups or speaking. And then I came into energy stuff, started to look at mind-body kinds of connections, and stepped out of a shower, got filled with nerve pain, couldn't walk for a couple years and couldn't sit for 6. And during that time, I started to just explore all kinds of different healing modalities. And during that time, then what happened for me was I kind of got activated. So my hands started to move automatically, and I could sense and move energy. And so my practice changed from most of my clients chat for a while, and then we do energy work. And then I teach energy classes typically and help people expand in their own gifts. So it's a little more limited right now, doing everything on Zoom in the sense of not being able to do much training or, good morning, Ella, and being able to help people right in real time in their own space. But I think most people feel energy anyways. And the beautiful thing is that energy doesn't have boundaries. So the beautiful thing is that we can feel when people think about us. We can feel when people send their love. We can feel energy changes in the climate of what's going on in the collective or the planetary stuff. So I think we're kind of in ripe times to be talking about how do we have peace and what does peace look like. And of course, because it's such a huge topic, I can't do justice to each point that I want to talk about, but I just want to kind of lay out some ideas and offer some things and what's been helpful to me. And nudge people to think in a reflective, big way. So I have a few slides. I'm going to just start by showing you some things because I think it's always good. Visuals can be very helpful. So can everybody see those? Okay. So, when we look at what does peace look like, I always think about, when you see a duck floating on the pond or on a lake, it just looks like it's gliding. And yet underneath it, its little legs might be going, just crazy, paddling. And so we don't always know when people have unrest. We don't always know.
Cindi, can you turn your slide on?
My slide. It is on my end. So people can't see this? You can see it?
You can see it, but you're seeing everything, your whole...
I see what you mean. Thank you.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, please give me tips as I go. So it's this, what we're really noticing in society right now and in the world is how much discord maybe would be the best word, has been lying underneath a lot of things, and not for the sake that people haven't been trying to bring it forward. It's just the voices haven't been enough. And I think all of us have a part in that. But I think in our own little personal lives too, there's a habit that goes on is when we don't feel at rest or peaceful, we're feeling some unrest, we tend to contract and pull in rather than expand. And so when you look at what does peace look like, you can see that like we come into the world, and these are all my grandnieces. And you know, you see the openness, and it's just like we come in ready. We come in as consciousness, ready for expansion. We wanted to be big. And I don't mean like that means notoriety, not at all. But our essence wanted to expand and include all of what life had to offer. I always say the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's like we wanted this expansion. We wanted to push consciousness. And so, when we're little, there's no programming. There's this place of peace unless there's physical needs that need to be met. But you can see in little ones just the lack of interference, I guess I would say. So, when we think about, I like gentle words, so I like unrest, or discord. Sometimes people will be into chaos or anxiety, fear, that's the way we experience it. But as we talk about it, I'm just going to kind of talk about it as peace and unrest. And so there's the individual way that we feel that. You feel very peaceful sometimes. You can be by yourself and not feel lonely. You can be by yourself and not feel fearful. It's like there's an individual settling in an open, natural state of worthy and feeling your true essence. And then there can be the discord of that, where somebody just has a thought about themselves that's not so kind, and you will feel the unrest kick up. So we're just constantly vacillating between these places of feeling comfortable and uncomfortable, or peaceful or unrest. And that on a personal level can be on many different fields. You could have your physical field kicked up, where you feel like you're racing, or it could feel kind of just so smooth and liquid. You could mentally be kicked up or be so calm. So as you can see, all of those areas could be day-long things to talk about. And then we've got the relational. You've got people I talked to someone yesterday who was experiencing a lot of unrest with family stuff. And so your family or your personal partnerships, relationships, then there's the community. You can have a great sense of community, and then there can be stuff kicked up in the community. And we know right now societal is really experiencing some unrest. Then, environmental, and then planetary. So like right now, and this was talked about back in 2019 when Uranus came into Taurus, and it had been 76 years since that had happened. So it's from March 2019 to July 2025. And so what we know about Uranus is that it brings in sudden change. It's going to be with us for a while. But sometimes the change is slower in coming in. Back the last time we had it, it was from 1934 to 1942. So if you think about what happened in those 40s, that was the time of the rise of Nazism, different kinds of things. So bringing in upheaval, sudden radical kinds of changes, progressive thoughts come forward, revolutionary change is common with it, increased technology, reforms. So I think it's really interesting that we're a year into this and we're into COVID, and then we're into social justice. We're into being able to see and magnify things that haven't been seen. Like like an example would be to look at during this pandemic, the essential workers that haven't been seen. Looking more broadly at the health conditions. So we have this stuff coming in, and sometimes this is happening on a bigger level, and we have to find ways of creating peace and the change that's coming along with it. Then the good news is that it's happening in Taurus, and Taurus is a place where stability is one of its main goals, stabilizing energy, self-control. Taurus is known for its endurance. It's always going to help to stabilize things. It's going to be about food, going to be about basic needs. So we have these two things happening. Uranus, which is always looking at what is the soul's longing, what is at the very, very interior of what we're looking for, and it will create things to make that rise. So I think it's very interesting that we're looking, at a time. So as I just offer these ideas, just know they're just my ideas, and certainly not meant that you have to buy into everything that I say. They're just ideas to think about. We'll go through some of those things, and then I'll also try to provide a meditation at the end. So like I said, we've got this stuff coming in, and I like to think of is transforming the world, and it's coming, because there's a lot of light also coming on the planet. And that's not something that seems obvious when there's so much heaviness going on. But the good news is that usually as light comes onto the planet, it pushes up the density for the exposure. And so that light is where we want to really be playing with and ushering in, allowing it to have permission to make the changes that are necessary. I love this idea that, when you look at, if there's a shadow, there's proof that there's light, And so a lot of times, so much of the attention is on the shadow, which needs attention sometimes, but there's a light driving it, And that same light is also going to help evaporate. Like if there's a puddle, is the light will help evaporate that. So we can trust that as we focus and call in light and call in a more multidimensional kind of a way, some of the things we can work with, that we are going to not make things disappear in the old way of like putting it back under the rug, but really bringing it up and exposing it and letting it be seen. And in that, that I love that reference that people say is to shed light on something, So it's to shed light on the issues that are rising, even if they're causing unrest. That it's this part of, if something in us has a rub, there's something there to be rubbed. And that in that rub, it allows us that opportunity to expose it, reflect on it, learn from it, grow from it, advocate about it. So we're really, in many of the energetic circles that would be saying we are in such amazing times, and how many of you would say these are exciting times? Yeah, because the possibilities are there. Now fun, maybe not so fun, but in the whole scheme of things, I'd much rather go through the density to bring about the light, So knowing that density is not anything that can really harm you on the very deepest levels of your soul. So this is an analogy I think of because I went to art school and I love things that help me to kind of see the world in a different way, in hopefully a more understanding and compassionate way. When you have an old camera lens, there's the shutter. And that shutter opens and closes to admit light, giving more exposure to the film. So if that shutter's open longer, there's more exposure to the film that brings more light in. And so I think of what I'm seeing right now in listening to my clients and listening to the news and watching things that are going on. And, you know, there's this tendency for us to be in many different places. You know, many people within the collective, many people within my family, many people within anybody I talk to are in different places. That there are some that might be seeing things for the first time in this way. There's some people who have been so frustrated because they've been open for a long time. And that can happen about anything, you know. For people when they, let's say they're in a dysfunctional family and somebody in the family gets help, their lens like opens up and they start seeing different possibilities on how they could direct their life and live their life. And they might still have somebody in the family who's very closed, and then there could be the frustration and the unrest because that person isn't open or awake looking at more. So I say this because I see a lot of judgment kind of being flown around right now on the different degrees and places where people are. And I think it's better to kind of think of it as observational versus judgmental, is to just observe where people are, you know, seeing where people are, seeing where you are yourself, you know. Like there's been times I've known nothing about some of the stuff that's coming forward now. And I know that even with what I know, it's only a pinky's worth of what somebody's true experiences have been. So, but I'm willing to open my shutter, you know. I am willing to advance, hopefully, my understanding. And that's what I hope for, is that just the willingness to advance that understanding, to just bring it forward. You know, so shedding light, what does that mean? You know, it could be in so many different forms. It could be, I could read to have it shed more light on my perspective, on maybe my experience in life as privileged versus somebody else's. I could call in energy to help expand my system. I could be out there verbal and shedding light, you know, in other ways. So we all have different ways we're going to do it. And to shed light means to expand what we know and to expose, you know, and to exposure's always been kind of seen as a negative thing. But I love when there's, you know, some of my blind spots exposed, and I hope people do it gently, you know, because I'd like to say I'm open, you know, even to my guides, I'm always saying, I'm open, just please make it gentle, you know, because, you know, if we get scared, we go into protective mode. And so as we open, you know, we're less protective and more can kind of go in. So this is maybe a goofy, complicated picture, but I wanted to show you some ideas here. Is that when you think about it, there's number one there has, like, the world, just so many different realities about everything. And if we could allow those different realities, we would be whole, you know, we'd be fuller. And that could be like any topic. So to take a topic that's not such a hot topic right now is if you take, if that was a circle of service, just service, and you thought each of those wedges was a kind of service, and I'll name a few, and then you could kind of look at that and see how many different levels of service have you, you know, come across in your life or been living. And so for me, like, service in my past used to be to just always give to everybody. And then I didn't know that sometimes to be in service was to set a boundary. And then service was the man who helped you try on your shoes. And today, service could be somebody holding energy for me. Service could be somebody saying intentions and prayers for me, or me for somebody else. Service could be a direct delivery of a product. Service could be, in my greatest sense now, I want to kind of serve the energy. I want to serve consciousness. So I'm always kind of trying to pull in what's next. I want to be in service to that. And in being in service to that, there's a little bit less personal stuff going on all the time, because my place is to try to be as clear as possible to bring forward something, to expand consciousness. So how many of you can relate to those kinds of things? So you see there's a lot of different things, and then there's ones I don't even have exposed yet. So if that's just one area and you look at service like that, and then you say, what would it look like about relationships? You know, what would it look like about racial issues and injustices? What would it look about healing? You know, like there are so many things. And so I kind of have this thing, like I want to keep broadening my lens. And when I might speak of one of those wedges, it doesn't negate any of the others. And so that's one of the things that I see happening right now in the unrest with people sometimes is that number 2 picture is like the worst case scenario where somebody has only their one reality and they don't want to open their eyes to it, anything else. And then the third is like somebody's taken a peek now. You know, they're starting to look at another wedge. And we've all been in these different stages. And the fourth one there is like, there's one thing about taking a glance at stuff, like, yeah, you're open and you're starting to look at these different realities. But then there's another where you start to deepen with it, you know, where it's not just a good idea anymore. It's like a way of life, or it's just is something that has to be felt or brought forward, you know. So there's these different levels, and we want to have some depth in it. So many times you can, you've experienced maybe somebody who knows a lot, but it's head. It's not integrated. It's not working actively in their life. And so as we look at any kind of issues, it's kind of trying to understand it deeper. I can remember, I worked in public housing for 10 years, and it was in North Minneapolis in the new immigrant or family public housing. And so I was with a lot of people that I didn't know their realities. And I was innocent in that because I was raised pretty much in a little suburb that didn't have a whole lot of diversity. But as I got older, I got hungry for the diversity. But when I was in public housing, it was a daily basis that it would be reflected up to me what I didn't know. And today, I'm sure it would be the same thing. That we all have realities that we've not lived or experienced. And so I would sit with people and try to listen, try to become more awake to what their experiences were. And in that way, then I could support, advocate, and I could do things that I wouldn't have done if I just didn't know. So if you look at the last picture there, eyes wide open, you think about like being open to all these different potentials. So I am open to people being disgruntled, let's say, furious with their experience. I'm open to that. Is it comfortable? No. But that is a reality that is theirs. And it's like this place, if we open more to it, will probably bring more light into all of our eyes, all of our lives. And then it will help settle things down. It will help to equalize and bring forward what's useful. And I find that on the littlest levels in my family stuff, if I'm open to hearing one of the kids just having a fit about something, it's amazing that it just helps to settle things down, is to not be pushing against it. Just like any emotion in your own system is like, as you push against it and try to not have it, you feel more and more pressure of it. It's just terrible. So it's this part about us open, but not living, looking for the discharge of it, looking for the movement from it, looking for the support of it. That's where we want to go. And that's what brings more light in. So another thing that always is helpful to me is knowing your true identity, knowing your essence, and knowing that our essence is connected to everybody's essence, so that there is no other. So now, does that mean that, like a lot of times when people, early on, I used to say all lives matter. And I thought that was good. I didn't know that that was not honoring of the Black Lives Matter, because I was kind of thinking this internal soul that comes forward matters. So when you know that, it doesn't mean we still don't fight for other people's lives to matter. It just means that on this energetic spiritual level, we're all the same. Like I thought when the pandemic came forward, I just thought, oh my goodness, we're going to all wake up to how we're all connected. I was just like, oh my gosh, as awful as this is, we're going to see that there is no separation with us. But that hasn't been so, has it? Yeah. But on the deepest internal spiritual level, it is still true. That our true identity, this essence, is we are still all connected. So from the energetic perspective, it's like that essence is your true self, or your core health, your innate health, all these things that I've talked about many times, but that formless spiritual essence. And then we come in with different things that we're meant to experience, and different things that are pushing consciousness, and but the whole aspect of how we work internally in connection to the divine or source energy or the fields is a divine engineering. Is that it's all connecting all of us in this beautiful, beautiful way. And when we are not living in accordance to that divine engineering, we will experience unrest. That divine engineering, even in your own self, if you run a negative thought about yourself through your system, you will experience unrest, because your divine self won't tolerate it. And so then if we do that, we take a look at that individually, and then we start looking at how does that go out into the world too. If I have ill will towards anybody, then I am not living in accordance to that essence or that divine engineered system. So you have a beautiful feedback system. Immediately you will have the discomfort, or you will project your discomfort on others. And so it's that part as we recognize who we truly are, and see that in everybody. And if other people can't see that in a particular group of people, then we advocate for them to see that. We bring forward and have the intolerance of saying, I'm not okay with you not seeing that in that person. And maybe you won't say it that way to some people, but then you might try to shed light. You might try to open them, broaden their lens. Does that make sense? So, you know, that essence, you didn't have to do anything to get it. It is your birthright. Your breath of life, you didn't do anything to get. Your parents made an earth suit for you, but your breath of life came through to animate that earth suit. So C.S. Lewis has this famous saying, you don't have a soul, you are a soul, and you have a body. And so nobody came in without one. Nobody came in not hooked up. A friend of mine gave me this coaster, and it says, reminder, we're floating in space. And when I worked in public housing, we would bring speakers in sometimes for the community to get to hear people. And Edgar Mitchell, who was the fourth man to walk on the moon, he came one time. And I had all the kids in the theater one time, and it was time for questions. And one of the kids said to him, what was the most powerful thing you learned from your experience? And he talked about that when he looked down at Earth, he looked down and he saw that it's all one planet, all one people, all one consciousness that was alive on that planet. And I remember just being blown away by that. Like that shed light for me. And the little kid said, dang, that's deep. So really that's the thing. So we have that, but then we have all kinds of, within the unseen world are also all these guides and supports for us, you know? And people didn't come in without that. It's just always there. But whether we've been, had light shed on that we could call upon that or not, or that's guiding us or supporting us and there for the asking, is something that has been very useful to me. Whenever I felt powerless or insecure or lack understanding, I'm calling it in. I'm asking for clarity. I'm asking for guidance, you know, support. And that's not just for me, but it's for the planet, you know, for my family, the community. So when you think of oneness, it's like you really can't afford to, like, if we were all petals on this same structure, we can't afford to pull off a petal. You know, we can't afford to have some petals that they don't get to be connected. We want to be it. We want to see it all. I mean, look at the beautiful uniformity of that. Now, with diversity, it would actually be different colored petals, but it doesn't matter. It just represents that there's, you know, this differences, you know, that we have some things that feel separate, but they're all needing to be connected. And then just one other analogy that's been very useful to me has been to look at, you know, I'm not much of a perfume person anymore because I'm so sensitive now to senses, but I like to think of it this way. It's like we all have, we're all like a perfume bottle, that there's an essence in all of us, and it starts with a liquid, and like the liquid is common to all of us, and then there's been additives, different smells, different colors, different aromas that have been added to each one of those things to have some uniqueness about it. And then we got packaged and some of us got, you know, kind of different shapes, as you can see there. And to me, as I look at it, I might have preference to some colors or something, but I'm working really hard at, like I might like purple more, you know, I tend to like black a lot. You know, I like the red tones or, you know, but now I'm trying to, you know, to always appreciate the full range of the spectrum. Because as I do energetic drawings now, each color that I use in the drawing, I can feel the vibration of. And each color is necessary, you know. And so if we look at our different shapes and sizes and colors and, things, that there are things you might prefer, but it doesn't mean that the others don't have value, don't have their place. Like, I am not a big, I don't know. I used to work with somebody who wore patchouli all the time. And I don't like the smell of patchouli. It doesn't like resonate with me. And so I was kind of avoiding this person a bit when I worked with this person. And then I thought, Cindi, why are you not getting curious about why does he wear patchouli all the time? And what is it that doesn't work for you about it? And as I reflected on that, I realized that I had this overwhelmed sensory system about patchouli because it was back in the 60s or 70s, so it was like connected to hippies and unrest and all that kind of stuff. And I had kind of felt like I moved past some of that stage. So it would trigger me. So I thought, okay, so that's my deal. What do I need to clear about that? So then I thought, when I talked to him, I said, can I ask you, I noticed that you smell patchouli, or you have patchouli on a lot. Can you let me know how it's important to you? Well, his mother was a healer and said that patchouli was really good for inflammation. And he had inflammation a lot. So it was this whole great example of, like, if I don't get curious about things, if I don't ask and find out what's going on here in me and in, my experience. And I got to really see how everything I do is thought created. Like, I make stuff up or I hold stuff. And so it's all kind of has this relationship to what I'm doing in my mind about something, about my experience, about someone. So that's one of the most powerful things for me that brought so much light into my reality, was to understand that I'm the thinker and I'm creating. Does that make sense? So then lastly, I read an article just recently by Michael and the Well of Light team. And I encourage y'all to look it up, but it really they were looking at what the difference is between deserving, entitled, and worthiness. And to just put it in a nutshell, the main point is that we're all worthy. We come in worthy. But our world has sometimes, and we have sometimes created the idea that we're deserving something. But the definitions of deserving had more to do with the idea that you performed in a certain way or you did something to deserve something. But we're worthy. We are worth, every person's worth is, deserving of something without having to do anything. Maybe a grade when you're trying to get an A or a B, you have to work and then you deserve the A. But as a human being, to have respect and to be supported and to be loved, you come in worthy for that. That isn't a deserved kind of thing. So it's this part of us. How do we promote worthiness for all people? It's when people don't feel worthy, when they're hard on themselves, they'll be harder on other people. If people don't feel worthy or think there's separateness of worthiness, then they'll be entitled. So I think it's a really great article if you want to take a peek at that. In that definition that they were saying is this idea that to be deserving is to qualify for something. And worthiness was from a deep place of honoring our essence, our goodness. So it's kind of a long definition. So, many people are into Brene Brown right now, and it's where she talks about when you get to a place where understanding and love and belonging, your worthiness, that it's a birthright and then anything's possible. So that's some of our internal work we have to do. And the way to do that is like sometimes even through when our world doesn't look that way, is to come back to our roots of who are we really. We're in essence, we're worthy, and we have this amazing power also to imagine the world being different and working in maybe a multidimensional way of bringing it in. So I want to just open this up a little bit here and just see if anybody has any comments or questions.
Yeah. So Cindi, what I wanted to comment on is in the beginning you were talking about how energetically we're all connected and that we can feel it. Well, I definitely felt the supportive love and the energy that was directed at me and my family, whether it was virtually or whether it was physically present. You could just feel that, and it really gave our family some strength.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear
couple of
that.
weeks. Yeah.
For some of you who may not know, Ella's son recently transitioned, and so the memorial was just this week.
Yep, it was Friday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Blessings.
Thank you. And then I have another question. So I've been talking to people about this for a long time, about how more light's coming into the planet. And so I routinely get challenged. What do you mean? Where is the light coming from? We see the light all the time. How do you get more light? So can you expand a little bit more about when you say the light's coming into the planet, what that means, like the source? And
yeah, it's tricky because, again, we're looking at a couple different worlds. We're looking at the physical reality of light, the kind people can see when they turn their lamp on or when they see the sun. Mm-hmm. But then there's so many other frequencies of light. So if you think about like a red light, it has a different wave and a different frequency. Right. Or when you press your, sometimes the remote controls, they had a sensor and a light wave that came off of it, and then it connected to the TV, but you couldn't see the line when you pressed it. Okay. So sometimes you have to describe to people that type of thing, is that there's this invisible world that's going on sometimes, and you don't see it, but it's happening. Okay. And I like to think of it as like back when, like a fax machine. Somebody would send a fax, that would be miraculous to me, And now just within seconds a text comes up, as you don't see it running down. You don't see the waves, and yet they're existing. And so right now, people who are sensitive can feel the downloads of light, feel the downloads of energy or information coming in. And so we're able to know that there's a lot coming in right now. Okay. Is that helpful? I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. Give me a few new words to throw in there when I'm having these conversations. So thank you.
Yeah, I usually have to link it to something that somebody can relate to, to then open the shutter, Okay. The questions? Are you guys up for a brief meditation? Okay. All right. So I kind of wanted this one to be one to kind of align the energies, to giving your system permission to receive and to move with the changes, to kind of clear patterns, and then to calibrate and organize your systems, because there's been a lot going on and the collective energies can be hard on the system. So if you're up for that, I'll do that. Gary's going to try to put on some music. We were struggling a little bit earlier with just the quality of the sound. So on Zoom, music is just not at its best. So we'll kind of keep it a little bit low so that you can hear me, but that there's something. And then if I could just ask you to kind of just relax, sometimes best to shut your eyes and reduce the stimulus, getting your feet on the ground and just asking for your higher self to direct this session as we go about. And so, Gary, can you try to offer me a little bit of music? While you're doing that, we're going to ask just to allow your system to relax and trust that your higher self and your guides will help to allow those energies that work for you into your system and organizing. Ask that you breathe in a relaxed manner and just feeling the release of any tension and asking to pinpoint any discomfort in your body and just breathe energy into that area of discomfort. Breathe in any tension, breathing air so that there's relaxation in that area. Ask to breathe in the healing and balancing energies into that location for you. We're also asking that your system release today's stress and the stress or the energies of the collective that have formed in your field. Ask to release any energies that aren't in service to you or the collective. Asking to remove and dislodge any old beliefs and patterns that are tied to being limited. We know that our patterns developed innocently based on our level of understanding or those around us. So we're asking to awake. A time where we're given support for our personal soul plans. Planets and the energies are helping us to expand. It's all a part of a grand design. Pushing for the expansion for all people. We're asking that our systems know that these energies are moving in to give us assistance and momentum to move us to our soul's longings. And that we want to release any thoughts and energies or experiences that get in our way of the new world that we're longing to create. Our soul knows nothing's meant to stay forever, that the energies are here to help us shift personally and collectively. We ask that your consciousness honor where you have been. Honor those experiences as they've assisted you in your expansion. We're asking to honor the people who have shown up for you. And now just let your system know that you're aware of the things, aware of the change. Just asking it to reduce its resistance. Trusting that your higher self direct how it occurs, and that the changes occur with grace and ease. And just imagine your energy system anticipating the changes. And know that on a soul level, you've been transmitting signals for things to change and for your dreams to be manifested. Knowing that you've been sending signals out into the universe since the day you were born to this time-space reality. And that there have been energies and guides, angels and teachers from the unseen that have always been interested in listening. That your higher aspects of yourself are always offering a vibration toward your potential. That your soul is yearning and it's vibrating a message out into the universe. So imagine this message being picked up and charged by the planets, activated for your soul's desire. And call upon your internal security to activate the change you're wanting. We're asking that your attention be unified. The energies running out to things that don't serve you be pulled back into your system to restore and to vitalize your system. We're asking to trust your resilience and your capacity to observe what's showing up with no need to control. And now, please, let's open your third eye to the degree that allows you to see the bigger picture. Just imagine the dial opening like the shutter to a degree of comfort and expansion. No need to push, just the permission to open. We know that Uranus is working its energies, providing the energy to make the changes, while Taurus is stabilizing. Now, with your light consciousness, look for the areas in a gentle way that get triggered by the idea of change. And just ask to release that which triggers your system in a way of discomfort. Asking to receive the information and move with the flow of moving towards the highest outcomes. And now let's clear the throat chakra. Imagine all that you've swallowed over time, clearing it, light running through it, balancing the thyroid, the throat, the teeth, the ears. As these new energies come in, universal communications, allowing you to speak your truth and make the shifts that are occurring for you and the collective. We ask to clear your solar plexus, the seat of resistance and fear, and activate the seat of the power within that. Activate the thrill of creation. Being able to create what you hope and dream about personally and collectively. Bringing in the energy to get behind what you're looking for. What does it look like? How does it feel if you were able to have what you wanted? Let the field see what you're thinking about. Imagine giving a snapshot to the field the way you see your life. And now take the energy and drop that vision, and the energy and the emotion into your heart space so the magnetics of the heart can send out the vibrations. And let each beat of your heart act as a transmitter, sending the magnetics along up with your vision, knowing that it will be received. That the unseens are eager. God is eager, the creator, the source, eager for the expansion, your happiness, and the collectives. We ask that the higher heart allow you to speak, open a space for communication with your soul and your inner guidance system out into the world. And trust that the earth will provide the grounding energies to assist with the change. And that we ask to have the eyes to see the world beyond our current perceptions, see what is possible. We ask to call in the light energy to fill any gaps from where things left, and call in the codes to support the new. We call in those within your cosmic communities to support and assist you in your expansion and the expansion of society. And now imagine having the eyes to scan your system and assist in the fine-tuning. And imagine fine-tuning to the stations, the frequencies that allow for faith and security and stability and excitement as you move forth in these new energies. We ask that the energies serve all people and especially support those of color, those who have been marginalized, sick, or those who are not awake. And we ask that your system calibrate to the higher energies and that you be guided in ways in which you can support the expansion of yourself in the world. Yes, to just come back into this space, slowly feeling maybe your toes, seat of your chair. Wiggling your hands. And slowly open your eyes.